All right. Hello and welcome to another Ledgeview Partners webinar. Thank you for joining us before your hopefully long Labor Day weekend to get some insight and information on the latest industry strategies and practices in customer service coaching. For those of you that have been on our webinars before, welcome back. And for all of you newbies out there, thank you for joining us for the first time. We look forward to having you back on many of our upcoming webinars. We'll only be taking about a half hour of your time today, so thank you for giving us that. My name is Julia Flaherty, and I am the Marketing Coordinator at Ledgeview Partners. We are a business and technology consulting company who partners with organizations to transform sales, marketing, and customer service operations and processes that are supported by core technologies, including customer relationship management, CRM, and marketing automation. Before I introduce our presenter, I do have a few quick housekeeping items to cover, so bear with me. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand after the live session. All attendees will receive a follow-up email after the webinar is complete with a link to access the presentation. We encourage you to share this within your company and your professional networks. To ensure the best audio quality, we do have everyone on listen-only mode. But if you do have a question or comment, please submit those in the question pane of your GoToWebinar control panel. And now that that's out of the way, it's time to introduce Greg Dove, who's the Director of Business Consulting at Ledgeview Partners and is a customer service coaching expert. Greg has a lot of experience helping organizations transform their sales and customer service departments while creating opportunities for growth and development. He is joining us today to give you that top-notch industry insight and information I referenced earlier. And with that, I will let him take over and get things started. Greg, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Julia, and thanks everyone for joining us this morning or this afternoon, depending where you are. Today's topic is customer service coaching, and as I work with clients all throughout the country over the past few years, there's a lot of focus on sales and sales coaching, but at Ledgeview, we feel customer service coaching is just as important, and hopefully through today's presentation, you'll see some of the reasons why. So today we're going to go through and look at the difference between customer service coaching versus training. We're going to talk about the different types of coaching. We'll help you understand some of the key elements to creating or improving your customer service coaching program. And then we'll talk about some of the key components and touch on some emerging metrics that you'll want to keep in mind as you move forward in your journey. So customer service coaching and training, I've found throughout my work with clients that a lot of times these two topics are merged together and often considered the same thing. So I wanted to shed a little light on the two and how they are different, but also highlight how one can lead to the other. So when we look at coaching, it's usually one-on-one, and I view it as a session between the coach and the manager and the rep, and it should be occurring quite frequently. And we'll talk about what that frequency should be, but it happens quite often, a lot more than training should happen. And as you'll see, it can be very formal, or it can be more ad hoc of a coaching session. And you'll also see through this presentation that if it's done correctly and if it's meant to really be a good, important initiative throughout your organization, it should be part of an annual evaluation. And obviously, coaching is going to be very measurable and flexible because it's sessions and you'll have criteria. And if you're doing it right, your coaching should really help you identify the training needs for your organization. And as you'll see, training is usually for a much larger group, so there isn't a lot of that one-on-one focus. You can typically see a whole customer service team or sales team, or maybe even parts of an organization in a training at a time. So it's much more larger scale and not meant to really have a lot of individual focus. The frequency is really going to be need-based, and as I mentioned, hopefully those needs are uncovered through coaching. I would say in looking at most organizations, they have coaching on an annual basis, and those coaching budgets and that those training budgets and training frequencies really come out in that budgeting time frame, and then they use that to either do annually or maybe even a semi-annual training. Much different from having a coaching session with a manager or a coach. Our trainings are going to be led by a subject matter expert. So if it's a product training, you may have a product manager do the training or a sales manager do the training. But then when we get into topics like best practices and other things that are really important, it's not uncommon to go outside of the organization and hire a trainer or a consultant that really is that subject matter expert. So it's usually an external resource. Training is going to be very formal, so there isn't an ad hoc training typically. It's something that's planned and really budgeted for well ahead of when it actually occurs. And again, the topics should and could come from your coaches or managers because they're on the front line, so they should be able to identify those training needs right away. So two types of coaching programs, and there are others, but the two that I chose to focus on today are informal or ad hoc coaching and then formal coaching. And informal or ad hoc is really coaching that occurs in the moment. It's very informal. It doesn't follow a defined process, and it's really just meant to offer up a quick tip or a pointer. And when I think of ad hoc coaching moment, it usually occurs for me as I'm walking to the break room or maybe walking to a meeting, and I hear one of my agents having a conversation. And again, it's a one-sided conversation because you're not hearing the customer, but you can identify something that maybe they said that wasn't exactly accurate or wasn't following a process or really conveying what you want. So you wait, and when that agent gets off the phone, you quickly give them a tip or some advice on how to improve it. So it's a very quick session. If you compare that to the formal coaching, it's quite a bit different. So the formal coaching is going to be well defined. It's going to have some real processes behind it and a lot of planning and structure. And when you do the formal coaching, it's really best to hear both the customer and the agent, so you can hear both sides of it to understand how the agent is interacting. And that's usually done through side by side, so listening in on the phone call, or even more common, and what I would recommend is to record the phone call. One caveat with recording phone calls, before you do that, you'll want to check to see what your laws are for your state, and maybe even some of the states where you're getting calls from, because they do vary, and you may have to notify both parties that the call is being recorded for training purposes. And I know we've all heard that lovely message when we've called into customer service areas. And again, the formal coaching has a lot of thought and well-defined processes behind it. So we're going to have some different stats that will highlight the importance of customer service coaching. And one that I found right away that I really liked is it costs 6 to 7 times more to acquire a new customer than to retain an existing one. And if I break that down, since I do a lot of work with sales organizations, I think of how much time our salespeople put into establishing a relationship and maybe securing a new customer. And then also when they have a customer, how much time they put into making sure that that customer has the right products and mix. So they put a lot of work into getting that customer or maintaining one. And as a customer service rep, we really want to do what we can to help them, because like the stat says, it costs 7 times more to get a new one than to retain an existing one. And one of the best ways we can retain an existing customer is by offering excellent, top-notch customer service. And coaching will only help you to achieve that. So we've decided we want to create a coaching program, or we want to improve our coaching program. So the first thing that I recommend that you do is take a look and see where you are as a customer service team. And it's really important to be honest. So take a look and understand what areas you're good at and what areas you need to improve upon. And again, be honest, because that's the only way you're going to make true change, is to really understand where you are. It's important also to gather information from your agents. They play a big role in this coaching program, and they're they're on the front line. They're talking to customers all day long. So get their feedback and understand where they could use help or what struggles they're having, and make sure you take that into consideration. And if you take those two and then add in gathering feedback from your key customers, and I really emphasize this because your customers have a lot to say too. So if you can survey them and get feedback and see where they think you're strong and see where they think you can improve, and take all of that feedback and make that really the foundation for your coaching program. And it really should be a program that leverages your strengths and addresses those areas where you need to improve. And as important as improving is, it's also important to leverage your strengths. So take what you're good at and do more of it, because that's something that obviously will help you with your customers too. So it's not all about just development or weaknesses, it's about leveraging strengths. And when you go ahead and create the program, understand where you want to be a year from now or 2 years from now, and set goals and design a program that will help you, complete that journey to success, to achieving those goals. With a coaching program, I can't emphasize this next point more. Make it simple and flexible. And the reason for that is because you have to have really good agent buy-in and coach or manager buy-in to make the program successful. And when I think of keeping a program simple, it takes me back to a client I worked with several years ago. And the manager was a very, very well-read, educated person, could recite all the recent statistics and all the trends. But when it came to creating a coaching program, he made it so difficult that the reps couldn't follow it, and they actually ended up not doing very good. So he really needed to go back and simplify it. And that's important. It's also important to make it flexible because your team will evolve, and you may need to change that program to help you evolve. So maybe you're dealing with seasonality of products, maybe you have peak hours or peak time of the season. So take all that into account and create a program that's flexible enough to allow you to go with those changes. One of the best ways to create success for your agents in a coaching program is to create tools that will support them and drive them to success. Some of those tools are coaching forms, call checklists, maybe even a pre-call checklist, cheat sheets, and a list of daily priorities are just a few. And the two I would highlight here are, the coaching forms. I'll give you an example of what one of those looks like. But the other one is the daily task and the priorities. If you know there's 5 or 6 or 10 to 12 tasks that your agents are doing every day, give them a list that shows the priority you want them to focus on. Because if answering calls is your number one priority, you don't want them in email when they should be answering calls. So instead of leaving it to chance, really lay that out and give them something that guides them. Obviously, if you're going to have someone run your coaching program for you, you need to train them. And train them and make sure they are a subject matter expert on the process, because they're the ones who are going to carry it out for you. And then with the reps, make sure you reward success. If you can tie it into an incentive, you could have a call of the week, a call of the month, and if you can, maybe give them a gift card for the call of the month. And it doesn't have to be anything great. It's just something to help drive that competitive spirit and make them want to do better. And again, don't be afraid to make changes. If we make our program flexible enough, we can change it as we go along and our team evolves. And with any coaching program, you should share the results with the team. And there's a lot of different ways to do this, but I think one is to have a meeting with all of the reps and discuss what was uncovered during the coaching sessions for that month or that week, and help everyone learn from one another. That's a great way to do it. You could also put it out in your company newsletter if you have one, or just post the results in the customer service area and let them see who is doing well and kind of where they measure up against their peers. This statistic really surprised me, and I think it will a lot of you as well. But for consumers, the customer experience will become more important than price and product by 2020. And from my work, I can tell you there are a lot of organizations whose customer service is not ready for that change. And, you know, we all focus and we should be aware of, you know, as a sales organization, what's the price and the product and doing what we can to drive that. But as this statistic shows, that customer experience is just as important, and one of the best ways to get ahead of that trend is to have a good coaching program. Here's an example of a coaching form, and I believe within a week or two after this presentation webinar today, you'll be able to find an example of this on our website. But this form is a good way to really go about your coaching sessions. And as you'll see in the beginning on the top there, we have the employee name and coach. That's important because we want to make this a formal process, and that's one really good way to do it. And then we have a personalized plan objective. So not every agent is created equal. Some will have different strengths and weaknesses. So try to have an individual plan and call that out here, what that plan is. And then goals and objectives from the last call evaluation, that will come from your last coaching session. So when you meet with the agent and tell them what they can improve on or what you'd like them to work on, put that in the goals and objectives area for the next evaluation, and that's your baseline to see how well they're taking your feedback. So as we move down, we have the areas of feedback, and this is where our coaching form gets a little more quantitative. So you'll see across the top, we have excellent, good, poor, needing action, and not applicable. So those are the quality ratings. And I really like those, but I will tell you, I've worked with companies where they liked excellent, they liked good, but they weren't a fan of poor or needing action because they thought it was a little too hard for the rep. And that's fine. You can feel free to have your own quality ratings, but what we want to do is have a clear-cut measurement of how they did. And then as we go along the left side, those are really your critical to quality components. So what are we looking for? The first one is type of interaction. We want to call out, is it a call, an email, or a chat? And that's a good indicator of maybe there's some complexities in chat or email or a call that you may want to have a different form, but here we're capturing all of them in one. And then what's really important is how are we doing with our first call resolution? Did we follow our standardized opening and closings? Did we use the customer's name? So those are just a few things that we're going to give a quality rating for, and depending on how we do, that'll give us an overall quality of call. And then areas of feedback on the personalized plan. So you spent time creating a plan for them, go ahead and give them a quality rating for that as well. And when we go to this part of the form, this is a little bit more of the qualitative. So we'll have some notes on the call, anything that we want to highlight. We'll have strengths from the interaction. So what did they do really well? What are the areas needing improvement and development? We can go ahead and put that in here. And then we have the goals and objectives for the next evaluation period. So again, that takes the current coaching session and bridges it to the future coaching session. And then what I would recommend is you keep a copy of this and put it in the employee's personnel file, and then give the employee a copy of it so they know how they did. And typically, these are reviewed in person. So after you coach them, you sit down and go over the call coaching results. So another interesting statistic, 26% of consumers have experienced being transferred from agent to agent. And I don't know about you, but that drives me crazy, and I think we've all, been a part of that. And that's one of the reasons why a good coaching program can really help you. So if you're noticing that your agents don't have all the answers and they're needing to continually transfer to try to get someone who can answer the question, you would uncover that in a coaching session, and then you could identify that as a future training need. So we really want to limit those transfer from agent to agent and focus more on first call resolution. So some of the key components as you build out your program or improve it, have a defined frequency. So we we really should take a look and take our coaching process and define when are we going to do this and what does that look like moving forward for the year and plan for it, because you need to allocate time for it. And I would recommend, if you're new to coaching or you have a new agent, you should be doing it, if you can, weekly, but at least a couple times a month in the beginning. And then as your agents get better, then maybe you can lower the frequency. But whatever that is, define the frequency by your rep, based on if they're new or if they're experienced, and then allocate that time out so you have no excuses to not coach. And obviously, if you spend the time looking to see what your goals are, make sure that your coaching program is going to support those customer experience goals. So whatever your KPIs are, measure them and make sure your coaching is set up to really help you get to that point. And as I showed on the coaching form, it should be a pass-fail. And the coaching process in general isn't meant to be punitive. It should be a positive experience to help them grow. So explain that that's the premise of the program, and they should be okay with a pass-fail. And they really need that because they need to know where they are and need to know where they need to improve. And then if you really, really spend the right time and have a good coaching program, it's a great tool to help you gauge the performance of your rep. And you'll see, and hopefully you'll see a good trend of growth, but we really need to use that as a tool to help us when we do that annual appraisal. The program must account for all channels. So here I have calls, chat, email. However you interact with your customer, you should be able to coach to that. And it's more than calls. I think chat is really emerging, and obviously there's a lot of email. So make sure you're coaching in all of those areas, because someone may be great at calls, but if you're not coaching emails, you might not realize that they're not really good at writing emails. So coaching to all your channels will really help you get a full picture. This next point about being accountable is really important. So we want our agents to be accountable, and probably the best way to do that is to hold your managers and coaches accountable for coaching them. And some ways to do that are to make sure when they're supposed to be coaching your agents, they are actually doing it, that they're spending the time that they need to, that they're not late to their sessions, and that they're not cutting them short. So make sure you hold them accountable, and that will really help the agents buy in, because if they're late or not coaching when they're supposed to, or always rescheduling, the agent's going to think, well, it's not that important of an initiative. So really hold everyone accountable. As we talked on the coaching form, the program should bridge one session to another and tie it in so they know where they need to grow. And then this last point, I've talked about it a couple times, but it's really important. Take all of your coaching sessions and review them at the end of the year and make that part of your annual evaluations, because that's a really key component. And when I do my annual evaluations, I look at every one of the coaching sessions and I really try to look for growth. And within those coaching evaluation forms is really a true story about how that agent is performing. So if done right, it'll actually do a lot of that annual appraisal for you. And finally, some really new metrics that I encourage you to consider when you put together your program. First call resolution is really, really probably the #1 emerging metric now for customer service. In the past, there was a lot of attention paid to the number of calls the agent handled, but that's really not that great of a metric anymore, because if someone's doing 75 calls a day and their peers are doing 45, that doesn't necessarily mean they're a better agent. It could mean that they're really going too fast and not doing a lot, and they may not be resolving a lot of the issues. So first call resolution has really replaced that number of calls per day. Resolution rate, that's important to look at for your team and for your reps, because of all the cases we get, we want to make sure we're resolving as many of them as we can, and that resolution rate should be pretty high. And if you're seeing a low rate, that should scare you, and you should really take a look at what's causing that and make changes quickly, because the quickest way to lose a customer is to not resolve their issues when they call in. Average reply time, I think that's a really important one when you're dealing with emails and chats, and it's something that you should take a look at and have an understanding of what you want that to be and coach to that. So it's kind of your service level, and define what that is and hold your agents to that average reply time. Engagements per agent, that's a really important one, because we may find that, you know, we have some agents that are doing way more than the other. Again, that could be a bad sign, or it could say that you don't have enough agents on staff. So take a look at the engagements per agent and use that to help you make decisions. And really, all of these metrics kind of tie into one another, and we really want to balance them to get an overall good results from our program. And then the busiest time of day and the peak hours. So I'm guessing if you have a customer service team, when it's pretty slow, you probably have pretty good coaching sessions. And if you're really super busy, you may have a little slippage there. So understand when your busiest time of the day is, and maybe add some more staff so they can take their time, or take a look at what's happening during the busiest time of the day and what's happening when it's not peak hours, and see if you can improve that by, you know, learning from when it's non-peak and applying that to those peak hours, because your customer doesn't really care if it's your peak time of day or not. They just want good service. So make sure you're measuring that and aware of what that all means. And with that, I'll thank you very much for joining the webinar today, and I'll turn it back over to you, Julia.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much, Greg, for all of that wonderful information and such an amazing presentation. I don't know about you all watching, but I certainly learned a lot of things I didn't know about customer service coaching before. Now, for all the questions that were submitted today, we will make sure to follow up with you offline. So watch for emails from us if you did have a question. If you did miss it in my intro, we did record today's presentation, and we'll be sending everyone a link to access this on-demand webinar. We also encourage you to visit our website at ledgeviewpartners.com for additional on-demand resources that cover sales, marketing, customer service, CRM, and much more. You'll see some of our ebooks you may like on the screen, whether it be 21 tips to building a successful inside sales program or more customer service focused infographics and other great things. We will also have a template of the customer service evaluation form you saw during today's presentation available for downloading at ledgeviewpartners.com. So do be sure to take advantage of that and check out our many exciting upcoming webinars like Got CRM, Why You Need Marketing Automation Too. That'll be a really good one you don't want to miss. So seriously, mark your calendars. All that said, we hope to see you again on future webinars, and thank you so much for joining us today. We at Ledgeview wish you a fun and safe Labor Day weekend full of family, friends, great weather, and delicious food. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you soon.